The mourning tents still stood when the weight of silence settled over Israel. Moses was gone. For 40 years his voice had carried across deserts and mountains, thundered before Pharaoh, and trembled with awe on Sinai. Now the man who spoke with God was buried beyond the sight of the people, and the wind that passed through the camp seemed to whisper his name. Joshua son of Nun stood alone at the edge of the Jordan River. The water flowed steadily, indifferent to human grief. On the far side lay the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yet between Joshua and that promise stood fear, memory, and responsibility heavier than armor. He had been Moses' servant, his shadow, his witness. But now the mantle had fallen fully upon him. That night, as the camp slept, the presence of the Lord came upon Joshua. It was not thunder this time, nor fire, but a certainty that pressed into his bones. Moses my servant is dead, the Lord said. Now therefore arise. Joshua's breath caught. Every place the sole of your foot will tread upon I have given to you. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. The words were not merely spoken, they were planted. Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua bowed low, tears wetting the dust. Strength did not come from certainty of victory, but from the promise of presence. At dawn, he rose and commanded the officers to move through the camp. In 3 days, he said, his voice steady, we crossed the Jordan. Jericho stood like a clenched fist against heaven. Its walls were thick, ancient, and proud, layer upon layer of stone baked by centuries of conquest. Towers watched the plains like unblinking eyes. Merchants spoke of it as unconquerable. Kings boasted of its impregnability. Jericho was more than a city. It was a statement. A declaration that no one entered the land without first bowing to its power. Joshua knew this. So did the people. Jericho represented everything that whispered you cannot. Before the army marched, Joshua sent 2 men quietly from the camp. Go, he told them, look over the land, especially Jericho. The spies crossed the Jordan under cover of darkness and entered the city where fear hid beneath confidence. Every gatekeeper watched, every soldier listened. Night had already folded itself over Jericho when the 2 men entered the city. They did not look like warriors. Their cloaks were dust-worn, their movements measured, their eyes alert. Jericho was accustomed to strangers, traders, travelers, soldiers of fortune, but something about these men unsettled the air. Word of Israel had reached even the deepest rooms of the city, carried by rumor and fear. They turned toward the wall. Built into the stone itself was a house, half dwelling, half fortress. A place where travelers came and went without questions. The woman who lived there was called Rahab. She opened the door before they knocked. It was not curiosity that moved her. It was recognition. She had heard the stories long before the men arrived, of a sea that split, of an army swallowed by water, of kings fallen east of the Jordan. While Jericho trusted its walls, Rahab had learned to listen for the sound of a greater power. She brought them inside. But Jericho was watching. Before the men had time to eat or rest, footsteps thundered in the street. Torches flared. Armor clattered. A fist struck Rahab's door with authority. The king of Jericho had been told. Bring out the men who came to you, the soldiers demanded. They have come to spy out the land. Rahab did not hesitate. She had already hidden the men on her roof beneath stalks of flax laid out to dry, their breath held, hearts pounding as voices filled the house below. Yes, she said calmly, opening the door just wide enough, the men came to me. But I did not know where they were from. The soldiers leaned closer, suspicion sharp in their eyes. When it was time to shut the gate at dark, they left, Rahab continued. I do not know where they went. Chase after them quickly, you may overtake them. The lie moved like a blade through the air. The soldiers turned and ran, their boots pounding toward the Jordan. The city gate slammed shut behind them. Only then did Rahab climb to the roof. The spies rose slowly from beneath the flax, muscles tense, hands near their blades. I know, Rahab said softly, before they could speak, that the Lord has given you this land. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shone with fear and faith intertwined. We have heard what your God did to Egypt. We know what happened to the kings beyond the Jordan. There is no courage left in any man. Our hearts have melted. She swallowed. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven above and on the earth beneath. The words were a confession. Then she knelt. "Now swear to me by the Lord that, as I have shown kindness to you, you will show kindness to my family. Give me a true sign, so that my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all who belong to them may live when this city falls." The spies exchanged a glance. "Our lives for yours," one said. "If you do not tell what we are doing." Then they gave her the sign. "Bind this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down. Gather your family into this house. Anyone inside will be safe. Anyone outside will be responsible for their own death." Rahab nodded, hands trembling as she took the cord. That night, she lowered the men down the outer wall, the same wall Jericho trusted for protection. They disappeared into the dark hills and hid for 3 days, until the search ended and the soldiers returned empty-handed. When the spies crossed back to Joshua, their voices were filled with awe. "Truly," they said, "the Lord has given all the land into our hands." The people melt in fear. And in Jericho, a woman tied a scarlet cord to her window and gathered her family close, trusting not in walls of stone, but in a promise sworn in the name of the Lord. When Joshua heard their report, he did not smile. "They are terrified," they said. "The Lord has given us the land." But God's strategy would not look like victory. No battering rams. No siege towers. No swords raised. Instead, the Lord commanded marching. For 6 days, the people of Israel rose at dawn. The priests lifted the Ark of the Covenant. Trumpets of ram's horns sounded, not in battle cries, but in obedience. They marched once around Jericho, silent. The city mocked them from the walls. On the 7th day, they marched 7 times. The sun climbed high. Dust clung to skin. Hearts pounded. Then Joshua raised his hand. "Shout," he commanded, "for the Lord has given you the city." The sound that followed was not merely noise, it was faith released. Trumpets blared. Voices roared. And the walls of Jericho, symbols of human arrogance and fear, shuddered. Stone cracked. Towers leaned. The earth itself obeyed. The walls collapsed, not outward, not inward, but down. A path opened where none had existed. Israel surged forward. And amid the dust and ruin, one house remained standing, the home marked with scarlet. Rahab and her family were brought out alive, folded into Israel, and written forever into the story of redemption. When the dust settles, Joshua stands before the ruins. This victory is not a trophy. It is a warning. Cursed before the Lord is the man who rises to rebuild this city, Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn, he will lay its foundation. And at the cost of his youngest, he will set up its gates. Jericho will not rise again. As a monument to human pride. Its ruins will stand. As testimony, that what God brings down, no man is permitted to raise. So the Lord was with Joshua. And his fame spread through the land. Not because he conquered walls, but because he trusted the God who commands them. And Joshua finally understands. God does not call his people to be fearless. He calls them to be faithful. The lessons learned from this story are: 1. Are you facing a situation that you think you are incapable of handling? Do not fret, be strong and courageous. Commit that situation to God because God fights our battles. 2. Know that in life we must go through certain situations to get to our promised land. Moses had to go through the Red Sea in the wilderness, Joshua had to go through Jericho. David had to fight Goliath and Jesus had to go through Jerusalem. 3. Obedience is important to winning our battles. God's instruction to march around Jericho 7 times seemed unreasonable in any military strategy, but Jericho came crumbling down when Joshua obeyed.